Garland in the corner. He's got it.
Feed stands. Powell with the running in. Mitchell shakes to the basket and thunders it home.
Oh! Mobley throws it down.
And Allen blocked the shot at the rim.
Welcome to Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. I'm fumbling over my words because the Cavs have their first winning streak of the season. That is something to get excited about after getting wins over the Milwaukee Bucks and a blowout win over the Detroit Pistons. Joining me today is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. That was it was a great effort from this Cavs team. These last two games, gave it up a little bit at the end against the Bucks, had to really earn it. But endured a Giannis masterclass, and still came out all the better. And then you go up against a Pistons team that has a lot of big dreams. I don't really love this Pistons team, and I talked about that in the summer, and I felt like it was a perfect get-right game for the Cavaliers defense. Where I've honestly been a little more troubled when things haven't been going well by the defense than the offense, because I think the offense is a little more explainable to go cold for stretches with the personnel that's missing, but the defense was great, and our boy Donovan Mitchell put a whooping on these Detroit Pistons. It was borderline mean-spirited.
I would call the Milwaukee Bucks win a good win for where the Cavs are currently at in terms of, everything that they're working through. They managed to get a big lead. They blew it, but one tight got it done. This was just a feel great win, right? And both of these teams, regardless of how high you are on them or not, they're both kind of projected to be outside the play-in, right? Like top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. So these are quality wins to get. And you're right. It starts with Donovan Mitchell, who was ridiculously fun in this game. Like he was getting to where he wanted to go with ease. The amount of left-handed finishes he had were just out of this world.
Full speed left-handed finishes, high off glass left-handed finishes.
The back-to-back sham gods were just like out of this world good. Like he was really putting on a show, and I think it's significant because he's putting on a show against a team that has a lot of very good defenders, right? Like Cade Cunningham, really good defender. Thompson's a really great defender. Holland's shown, some stuff on that end, right? Like this is a team that really hangs its hat on the defensive end and does so in a very physical way, right? And we have seen the struggles at times for Donovan in matchups against those super physical defenders where he's not able to, kind of use his physicality to bully those types of guys, right? You think back to some of those matchups against OG Anunoby, Lou Dort, even Andrew Nembhard, even though he's not the bulkiest of guys. Donovan was just so evasive in this one that they couldn't even, initiate the contact. And I just thought it was such an impressive performance from him, and just kind of the presence of mind to recognize, hey, we gave up a lead against the Bucks, and I'm going to go for their throats in the third quarter here.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. And when I was watching, I don't know if you felt this way at all, but like sometimes I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about like when a shooter is feeling it, or like, or as a score. I just felt like Donnie felt good in his body in this game. Like he was light and explosive. Like sometimes you see, especially as these guys get older, you kind of have to see them, rev the engine up and get into each gear as they attack. It was like just 0 to 60, easy. He was like an electric car out there, Justin.
and even more encouraging when you consider, okay, this is the first time that they've had a back-to-back this season. It's their first 3 and 4 nights. They, you fly from New York to Cleveland to Detroit, and no, those aren't the longest flights in the world, but it just means you're not going home and resting right after, right? So I think it made it understandable that both teams had a little bit of tired legs in terms of the outside shooting, but I thought the Cavs didn't play like they had tired legs overall. I thought they really played with a purpose. Donovan obviously setting the tone in that regard. But I really felt like they were putting an emphasis on this game. They wanted to make a statement. They wanted to continue the success that they were starting to build with the wins over the Nets and the Bucks. And I'm really, really, really pleased with this outcome.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of put a bow on the Donovan thing, I just thought I thought he really did kind of just decide that it was going to be like, Detroit kind of made. I wouldn't even call it a fake run. They got it to like 22, I think, at one point in the third. And it was like starting to, you had the little.
That is still a funny line, though.
I know.
Got it to 22.
I know, but like, Cavs nearly blew a 25-point lead to Brooklyn. Came very, very close. So like Detroit had finally found their legs. Holland and Reed. B-Ball Paul is a Hall of Famer if he just plays 82 against the Cavs. I'll tell you what.
He and Chris Boucher.
I know. But yeah. So like, I just feel like I really liked the decisiveness and kind of ease of putting the game away. Like it just felt really good. Like sometimes when that happens, you kind of feel a player again wear the weight of it. It was just like, I'm just going to go score 3 or 4 buckets in a row, and we'll call this one done. And representative the numbers as well: 35 points on 18 shots, 13 of 18 from the field. Just like a pure bucket getter night. You don't need dimes when you go 13 of 18 from the field.
Yeah, and I thought the scoring in the third quarter, he had one of those runs against the Knicks, but didn't really feel like he was getting to where he wanted in the same ways, right? Like he was hitting some shots from the outside. It wasn't this full kind of mastery that we saw against the Pistons here, where none of it felt forced, right? Like it didn't feel like, okay, Donovan is kind of doing some heat checks here, kind of feeling out what the defense is giving him. There were still other possessions where other guys kept it going. And then it was just any time that he felt like he had an advantage, I'm getting clean by my guy, and whoever the help defender is going to be guessing and second guessing where I'm going to go with this basketball, because I can, kind of do the Dwayne Wade football carry over top of you. I can hit you with the sham god. I can finish with the left hand. I can finish high off the glass. Like, there were a lot of good defenders and a lot of physical defenders on the floor, and just none of them had any chance at slowing them down. And, we were talking before the podcast, and you're right that sometimes I think we don't celebrate enough when Donovan has games like this, because it's so regular.
Sometimes we don't even get it before the ad break in the pod. Yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, Donnie scored like 38 on like 24 shots. Like, nope. Okay, moving on. And I think sometimes it's because I don't our friends at the Greatest of All Talk podcast just call it generic praise. Like sometimes I'm like, yeah, he was really good. I don't know what else to say, but like I felt like he was so outrageous, like that even the broadcast team was loving it. Which, by the way, nice debut outing for Austin Rivers and Robbie Hummel. I thought they did a nice job. I want to get
to that in a second, because the only other time that I can remember us doing this with the player was when we would talk about LeBron, right? Where it's just, it's kind of old hat that we expect him to put up those numbers.
But LeBron, can I real quick? I do want to mention this. LeBron is such a weirdo that there's always something to talk about. It's like,
that's true.
Like the way he got his 37-7 was so variable.
Yeah.
In terms of how engaged he was,
Yeah, you're right. It was a lot of fun. I did really enjoy the broadcast on Peacock. There was a few kind of growing pains for Austin Rivers. Like I love when he was asking the question at halftime, and then when
forgot to give him the mic.
Forgot to give him the mic. He held that thing like a running back to lean in to get the answer, not realizing that the broadcast.
I'll tell you what, that audio operator rode those faders, and I could hear Johnny Bryant just fine. So shouts to that guy.
Yeah, I like it though. I like these broadcasts taking some hacks when it comes to different approaches. That
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like the two kind of commentators, one by each bench, seeing what Prime is doing too with the the massive setup that they have. I'm just excited to see, someone try to do something a little bit different. And so far it's landing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed the coverage so far. But like, I think actually more than an LED studio, more than a bunch of commentators, sitting the color guys sitting by the bench instead of at the booth. Like, all these things are interesting hacks. I think the most important thing is just hearing some new voices. Like, I think we've heard the same like 10 or 12 people calling NBA games for like 15 years now.
Sure.
And like all of a sudden hearing like, oh, I don't know what Robbie Hummel has to say, but like, oh, he's really interested in the way Sam Merrill screens. Like, that was cool to hear. And like, when you have these different, you kind of forget that there's other ways to call NBA games. And I generally find the play-by-play and color commentary of games fine. Like, I'm not someone who is a big Jeff Van Gundy hater or anything like that. But like, it's just nice hearing new voices because it's just different perspectives that, teach you the game. Like, you can kind of love the game in new ways.
Yeah. And also just a new perspective of having those guys set up at the free throw line. I think they get a different vantage point of what the action is. They kind of have a better feel for the physicality than, compared to sitting at center court. But you're right? Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes fresh voices or guys kind of tweak or, companies tweaking their approach and making small changes to the way that they do things can make a big difference. And, you talked about a guy that's done that for the Cavs so far in Sam Merrill, who I think has enhanced a lot of his strengths. And obviously we were kind of waiting on the status of him, who he left the game with a hip contusion. Hopefully not too serious. Obviously contusion is better than like a pulled hamstring or something along those lines that can really, really linger. But Sam has been out of his mind good so far for the Cavs. I'm encouraged not only with obviously the outside shooting, which has been terrific. And I think last season it was kind of easy to overlook and maybe even slip past my radar when it came to him playing with a wrist soreness, sprain, whatever you want to call it, for the majority of the year. But he's shooting the hell out of the basketball. But it's all the little things that are really impressing me. I thought he had a really good game defensively, both against the Bucks as well as in this game. Made some plays that really stood out to me. Some of the playmaking, and then as the broadcast pointed out, the screen setting has been as good as ever.
Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed the Sam experience so far, and I actually don't want to look past the shooting, which has been freaking phenomenal. He's hit 18 threes in 4 games.
Yeah.
And that is really important, especially for this iteration of this Cavs offense, who are in need of that kind of skill set with no Max, with no Darius, to help loosen things up. And last year, his kind of big breakout year in Cleveland, he shoots 40% from 3 on 12 3-point attempts per 36.
Yeah.
Last year, he goes down to 37% on 9.5 3-point attempts per 36. And that's not nothing, brother. Like, that really matters when you're a guy like that, because the way, like, I think he's always going to get guarded roughly the same way, but like the pure panic that you inspire when you're hot and consistently cooking teams as opposed to being a constant threat, there is a huge difference. And like, a big part of what made Kyle Korver such a devastating player for so long in his career was that he kind of was always around that 40% mark.
Right.
And like, if Sam was a very good 3-point shooter on volume last year, but was not one of the best 3-point shooters in the league by performance. No. It really, really matters if he becomes, again, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league by performance and by reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, shooting, I guess last year was functionally league average, in terms of 3-point percentage at a good volume for the
and
minutes
and high degree of difficulty. So it's not like he had a bad year. But
Right. So, those kinds of movement shots, like there's a value to that. But you're right. When you do that at 40%, when you kind of bump up that 3%, it does change the math, right? And when we talk about recreating Ty Jerome in the aggregate, having someone that's shooting above 40% from three, in addition to Donovan and Darius. Not that Donovan shot above 40% last year, but you know what I mean in terms of the attention that they have. I think there's a real value to it. And then you add in DeAndre Hunter, who is now apparently showing the playmaking that we were missing from Ty Jerome with 6 assists tonight. I couldn't believe that.
yeah, I thought he made a couple really nice passes today. Zipped one to the corner. That was really, really nice. Overall, thought he had a very nice game as well, even if the scoring wasn't crazy efficient. The playmaking, had a couple tough contested rebounds as well. And I don't think it's a surprise that, he only played 24 minutes in this one, so it wasn't like a crazy high minutes night. But I feel like it's no surprise that the defense is starting to look a little bit better when you add him back in. You look at the starting lineup of Donovan, Sam, DeAndre, Jarrett, and Evan, like, you go, all right, that's like pretty well equipped to make minutes hard for the Pistons. And that certainly was the case across the board. Again, I think the Pistons are a very good test case for because they can't shoot. They just don't have enough players who can reliably shoot. I mean, they're playing Javonte Green at the 3 with Beef Stew and Paul Reed at one point in the third quarter of this game. So it does simplify things in fairness, but I thought they did a nice job on Duncan Robinson. Just felt like they were a lot more disciplined on that end of the floor than they have been at any point this season.
It's an important test case for when they play the Orlando Magic, right? A team that only has one guy that can shoot. That's going to play with some physicality. I agree. And I think the biggest thing with DeAndre coming back is you just see how much better everything feels when everybody slides down just one, position within the rotation, right? Like I just think it normalized so much for this team. Got off to a good start against Milwaukee. Obviously they blew that lead, but I thought that the defense in that game was well ahead of the offense, right? I thought Milwaukee got back into that game because the Cavs offense kind of stalled out. But the defense was there. I thought Jared Allen did a terrific job on Giannis in the minutes that he had. They threw a lot of bodies at him.
Giannis was unbelievable in that game, by the way. He remains the most, I guess Wemby is now, but Giannis has a certain brand of unfairness.
He looks like he's going to be a top 2, finisher for MVP this season. Like he looks as good as I've ever seen it. But the Cavs made him work, right? And I thought they did a good job of limiting the chaos that he can create, right? Like there's going to be possessions that frustrate you where he pushes off with an arm and you wonder, well, like he's already physical enough. Do we really have to penalize me for this? But they did a good job of maintaining their composure. And overall, I just feel like the defense is catching up to where it needs to be quicker than the offense is, at least with these last 2 games. And even going back to the start against Brooklyn, right, where it looked like, they were energized on the defensive end. They created havoc. And then because they thought the game was out of hand, they took their foot off the gas. I think some of that happened against Milwaukee as well. Probably not the same level of, they're not really a threat, but they got a little comfortable with the lead. And then this game against Detroit, defensive intensity was consistent, throughout the whole night up until garbage time where, you're not going to read too much into that. But the Cavs were strong defensively, and I thought they got better offensively as the night progressed. I actually didn't love everything at the start of the game. It kind of felt like, maybe 1 out of every 3 possessions, I felt good about the look that they had. And it almost, how sometimes we talk about how you can let perfect be the enemy of good. I felt like they were letting good be the enemy of excellent, where it's like, okay, the first decent look that they got, they were taking it, where this team, when they're at their best, sacrifices decent looks and moves the ball until they get great looks. And I thought they got better at that as the night progressed, and particularly in that third quarter when they were just carving up Detroit. I thought it was some of the best offense they played all year.
Yeah, they I think you're right. I still think that's just going to be hard for them because of the lack of ball handling, especially when on a night where Lonzo doesn't play. I thought Craig was very, very steady in his minutes. I thought Proctor had nice minutes for them, but it's still not the same amount of kind of getting into the offense that you otherwise want, and obviously didn't shoot crazy well or get a lot of threes up in this one. But yeah, I mean, I do think the process is, they're still definitely finding themselves on that end of the floor, but that's what I expected. I didn't expect the defense to have as many blown coverages as they did in those first 2 games. So definitely, and even the Milwaukee game, I felt like they were more sound defensively, even in that second half. I just thought they got run over by the Giannis train, which happens. And like, even when they were sound against him, and I felt, I don't know if you can do a lot better than that. Milwaukee still often got great looks because he is just that physically imposing. By the way, I know this is we're kind of bouncing all over the place, but I like that Milwaukee team. I think they're good, and I think
really,
I do, and I liked them. I'm. This might be just a teensy bit of confirmation bias because if you remember in the offseason, I was much higher on them. I just think they have a clarity of construction now. Like they have their I think the Dame thing just never really felt that comfortable. So even they always felt a little less than the sum of their parts with Dame because of that partnership was never really there, and Giannis just isn't really an off-ball player. That's not really his bag. Moving into a world where it's we are going to have guys who are either going to defend, shoot, or self-create when Giannis sits. That is the plan.
I'm going to say something that's a little hurtful to you.
Yeah.
Is it possible that they looked better than you thought because Kyle Kuzma wasn't active?
Very possible, and I'm not hurt by that. But even a guy like Cole Anthony, who I think has looked really good for them because he's got a little bit of self-creation juice, because you don't really actually need that much because Giannis is going to get you so many clean looks. So it's just better. It might just be better to be big, tall, and strong otherwise. And I know you're lower on Turner than I am generally as a player, but I mean, they really did some great handoffs when the Cavs were running inverted pick and roll with Evan.
He's looked great for the Bucks in the games that I've watched, so I got to tip my cap there. I forget who was on with Karma and Lima, but they had a national analyst on, and he was pointing out how he thought that the Bucks were going to overachieve, and one of the central arguments was Doc does really good with, almost less talent, like a team that he can overachieve with, that he just kind of gets buy-in up and down the roster. And there does seem to be a lot of belief and
everyone just knows their job on that roster. I think
there's a value in that.
They might be the third or fourth best team in the East. That is my takeaway after a week and a half or a week of basketball so far.
Hey, it is early, but that's what we're here for. We're here to give takes, right? That's why we got these microphones in front of us. You're right, though. It does seem like everyone knows their role. Kind of like Zoom AI Companion just naturally knows its role alongside us, Carter, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. Let's go to Evan because I think it's important.
It warrants a discussion. I was going to ask you just to go there.
He does tend to come up on these podcasts. I continue to kind of battle with what I'm seeing when it comes to Evan, because on the one hand, he's been playing well. What he is putting up is actually pretty damn impressive. On the other hand, I think, we have such high expectations for him, and the bar has been raised, that we're still wanting to see a little bit more. We're still wanting to see it kind of come naturally. And I thought he was a lot better in the second half against Milwaukee. I thought he was terrific against Detroit. I thought this was some of the best defense that he played all season. And it's starting to feel a little bit more natural, in my opinion. I think there are things that they're figuring out, even from a spacing standpoint, in terms of where he attacks, where you have Donovan lined up. There was a couple times where Mobley was dribbling on one end of the court and Donovan was on, the weak side corner. I liked what that did from a spacing standpoint. I like some of the stuff that they're running with DeAndre. So I'm encouraged and I feel like it's moving in a positive direction, but it definitely still is a feeling out process.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. Let's just look at the season on the whole so far. He has not shot better than 50% in a game so far.
Hey, 50% tonight, though.
8 of 18, 5 of 12, 5 of 13, 5 of 10. So the volume hasn't been great either, in fairness. In terms of positive indicators, the playmaking's up. 3, 5, 6, 5 assists. Mm-hmm. The blocks and steals are great, between 2 to 5 every game. I think I agree with you that the process looks better. The inverted pick and rolls, which I thought were kind of aimless, he's at least, I think some, I don't know, obviously, but I feel like someone sat down with him and drilled some tape of those, because he's dribbling more aggressively through the pick and roll and making the defenders commit to him one way or the other. I still think he's having a hard time deciding what to do in that liminal space. Like right now, I think it's a little too eager to get to the pull up when on the hedge and recover. If he I think, dribbling into a floater or even, just getting right into the small's chest so he can do a post and then a quick dump off. Like he had one where he fed Jarrett on a short roll and Jarrett just kind of shorted the push shot. But I feel like he is figuring out his way through these reads as a ball handler in the pick and roll, because really he doesn't have that many reps doing it.
Yeah.
But like I still think mixed results, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not blown away. He's having a hard time with command of the ball right now. A lot of dribbles off it, a lot of losing the ball, frankly. So the leap has not come that many were predicting, but it is nice to see, even from game 1 to game 4, that we're seeing some good progress.
Yeah, I feel like I am seeing problem solving from him, where there were times where he didn't beat the defender on the first move, beat them on the second, but then he still went to a third move. Yeah. I think that's happening a little less frequently. One of the things we talked about after the Nets game was, hey, you're still trying to just go over guys when you can go through them. I think he answered the bell to some extent there. What is it? 18 free throws in the last 2 games. Like that is something that we've never really seen from him. And of course, there were some intentional fouls at the end with Milwaukee, but he is initiating contact at a higher rate, and that's really encouraging. But you're right. Like there is going to be, no matter how much you practice this stuff, there is going to be a learning curve in getting it to translate to NBA speed, right? And as he adds things this season and as he becomes more comfortable with them, teams are going to get film on it and they're going to come up with counters, and then he's going to have to counter. And it's just going to go that way over the next, 5 months. People talk about, hey, there's nothing you can learn from the regular season. Learning how Mobley reacts, how does he get on himself when those struggles occur? Does he get in his own head? Or if he does get in his own head, does it only happen for a few possessions? Does he right the ship kind of within the game? And I thought Milwaukee was actually a great example of him righting the ship within the game. I thought the second half was a whole lot better from him. I'm not seeing hey, I missed a couple shots, so now I'm going to kind of float into the background. I haven't felt that from him this season. So I like the way that it's going. I just think that this season is going to be all about finding that right balance, right? Between self-creation, between using him as a hub to create for others and himself, right? Like, I think a lot of players within that archetype are some of the most dangerous dribble handoff weapons in the league, right? Where they can use that, those types of sets and those actions to self-create for themselves or to open up for other guys. And then there's probably going to be a healthy dose of, easy buckets for him off ball, right? Where other guys are creating for him. And I think obviously Darius comes to the top of mind when it comes to that. But I think finding the balance between those three and finding the best ways to position that is going to be a feeling out process, and one that you couldn't really figure out in training camp.
No, I think that's fair. You mentioned getting him more easy looks, yeah, and how that's going to come. Do you think they need to work a little harder to do that? Like, because I think there is a degree to which there are possessions where they say, "Hey, Evan, we want you to be the star of this play," and like, you know, someone in our Discord, I forget who, sorry, like had noted that going into I think tonight that he had only had like one dunk so far in the year, and like I do think that's like, I don't think that's representative of like Evan not playing well. I think it's representative of he's just not getting a lot of easy flushes, and like part of me wonders if they need to be thinking a little bit more about how to find him the ball with advantage, you know, the same way we asked them to do that with Donovan or Darius, of like, hey, like, what are we doing to get him the ball, you know, on the move with a defense that's a little panicky, or already in rotation, because I don't really think he's had a lot of opportunities to do that. And like, it just feels like of his, he's got 23 made field goals on the season. Feels like 21 of them were hard.
Yeah. You're right. And it's almost like I'm sure it's not this simplistic, but it's almost like, hey, we know that he can finish in those situations, so we're not going to drop those sets for him, right? Where it feels like when it comes to kind of those roll man buckets, they're trying to prioritize Allen in those spots, right? But after what happened in the Knicks game, there definitely seems to be a point of emphasis to find Jared Allen. He's been absolutely terrific. You know, that sky high field goal percentage. Also, shout out to Jared Allen, who is now 10th all time on the Cavs list, passing LeBron James for offensive rebounds. So that's pretty cool.
Crazy, by the way.
But it feels like those possessions are being drawn up for Jarrett. Like I loved that opening set of the game where Jarrett first set the screen for Donovan, set a screen for DeAndre off ball, and then it kind of went into that Hunter pick and roll where Hunter just made the perfect little bounce past it to Jarrett. Like I love that kind of action, and it excites me because that's the kind of thing that I think that they can run for both bigs, right?
Yeah.
If Hunter can make those solid reads, don't expect him to do anything spectacular, but hey, like you're going to be getting the ball coming off a screen from a good screen setter. You're going to have advantage here, and you're either going to score for yourself or find the roller. The stuff that you can layer on when you do have Darius and Donovan out there as well, right? Or when you're attacking in second units and this team is fully healthy and you have a Max Strus out there as well. Like it excites me for what the possibilities of this roster can be. But I just, whether it's Evan, whether it's Jared, or even, you know, more talented scorers in Darius and Donovan, I just want like that baseline 15-20% easy looks to get all of these guys going, right? Like I just kind of want that built in. And it feels like they almost feel like we know Mobley can do that. Let's work on the stuff that he's trying to work on.
Yeah, and there's just no way to know. Like, this is where I really wish we were in market, because I would really love to ask, like, hey, like, lot of starting from scratch, is that because the offense is still finding itself, or is it because you're actively trying to learn something? And like, we're just not gonna really get to know. And I'm not, you know, Kenny's pretty darn transparent, but maybe he wouldn't tell us that even if we asked him. But I think the Evan thing is at the very least interesting right now. It was nice to see a dominant defensive performance from him. I'm not sure he'd had one yet this year. Where he felt really unfair on that end of the floor for, you know, the entirety of the duration of his time on the floor. So overall, progress is being made. But
first double of the year for us.
Yeah, there we go. And I am liking the passing. That has been nice. Anyone else you want to talk about?
There's a couple. I do want to talk about Craig because I think after that first shift against the Knicks, he's largely been really, really good for us. I've just been impressed with kind of the way that he's been attacking the basket. He had a couple bad plays against the Pistons, but overall, I've just been really, really pleased with what he's brought to the table. I just think that the composure is a little bit better than it's been in the past. Like it feels like he's starting to settle into kind of, being a rotation player or someone that you can call on, when it's necessary.
Yeah, I thought he gave good minutes tonight. Got 6 steals in his last 2 games as well, which is nice.
That's awesome.
Just to kind of get a little bit more of the chaos. And he kind of has to be a chaos player on defense because of his size. Like, he's just never going to be like a stopper. So you got to be a guy who goes in, grabs contested rebounds, which he did. He had 7 today. He's got to poke steals. He's got to get to the free throw line. And I thought, you look at a 4-7 3-and-3 line and you go, oh, that wasn't that great. But I thought he did a nice job of kind of keeping the unit going when in a game where Lonzo's sitting because it's a back-to-back.
Yeah, totally agree. And, you mentioned Lonzo Ball. I do think we have to bring him up because that was a hell of a game for him against the Bucks. I thought that is in big neon lights, proof of concept. That's exactly what you want to see from Lonzo Ball type of game. I was really, really happy with him. Honestly, both Lonzo and Larry, right? Like, it's very clear that the team's being very conservative with their minutes for Larry, but he looks awesome out there. I'm just so happy to have him on the team. Even when he doesn't get the offensive rebound, just the way that he tips at the ball, tries to make things happen, creates chaos. It just feels like whether it be Craig, Larry, or Lonzo, all 3 of those guys are really kind of thriving in that chaos creation type role, right? Like, I think with the team trying to find that balance defensively between being more aggressive and making teams uncomfortable compared to what they did last season, some guys are going to thrive in that, and other guys are going to be overmatched, being asked to do a little bit too much outside the shell. And I think Craig is enjoying the assignment and thriving in it. Then I look at someone like Jaylen Tyson, who I think is really, really struggling on the defensive end. Like, the offense, I think he's a little bit in his head, right? Like, he's slowed up on a couple of those finishes around the rim. There just doesn't seem to be the confidence. I think he can figure that stuff out because we saw him do it last year. The defensive end is definitely concerning right now.
Yeah, I think even I had to. I think I have to think a little bit about, hey, it's only 4 games. It's a different role, a different environment, and he's probably feeling a lot of pressure to show stuff. And and I almost have to kind of remind myself, like, oh no, he showed us a lot last year that looked really, really good. He was the lead. He was kind of the leading player on our platoon nights where guys were resting, and was a guy who scored 20 points in a game multiple times. And even on the defensive end, I think looked better than he's looked so far. So I think this is a guy who I think I need to give him a little grace and say, hey, let's let him find his way. The Cavs are winning right now through his minutes, even though they're not very good, to be frank. Like, he's not 0 of 5 from the field and 0 of 2 from 3 and only 1 assist, and then 5 personal fouls and one of the worst help defensive plays you'll see.
That's tough.
When he goes to help Jared Allen on a beef stew ISO to give up a baseline layup that, for functionally no reason. I think Austin Rivers said I forget, whoever's on the Cavs side of the bench was like, they're talking to him about it. He's putting his hand up. So, it just hasn't been great. I think we were wondering if he was going to challenge for either the 9th or the 10th spot in the rotation, right, with Dean and Larry. It's a long season, but right now I'm just not expecting this guy to be in a healthy rotation for the team right this second.
Yeah,
and luckily there isn't going to be that for a while because Max is not coming back in the next 2 weeks or something.
Right, and Sam might potentially miss some time, which is going to open up opportunities for Craig Porter Jr., for Jaylen Tyson, and probably Tyrese Proctor as well, who I thought Tyrese looked pretty solid again against Detroit. The thing with Tyson too, and I think you're right, that it is important to be patient with this kind of stuff. We've seen it before where guys don't start off the season well when they've tried to add stuff to their game and they're trying to settle into that balance. But we also just see kind of these sophomore slumps sometimes from role players, right? Where they come in, they know what their identity is, they know what they're supposed to be doing. Then they go into the offseason, they try to add some new stuff, and then it's a feeling out process. Like I think about, one of the guys that I compared him to coming out of college in Jaime Jaquez, given their similar profiles.
He's been great for Miami so far this year, and he was awful last year.
Exactly, right? So I think patience is key when it comes to this, but it's, as I said, I think the offense is going to come around. The defensive end is where I have questions and concerns. But even within this game, like there were possessions where he was guarding Tobias Harris that I thought looked really, really good, right? Like that's the type of defensive assignment that I feel comfortable with him in. And then there's other ones where I think the most important thing is cleaning up the off-ball stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to lose a little bit of contain on the perimeter, the Cavs have had guys that have done that and they've recovered really well for it. It's the breakdowns like that play that you mentioned that you just can't have.
George Niang was on this defense, and this defense was very good. A guy with way more limited mobility than Jaylen Tyson, frankly, and less vertical pop than Jaylen Tyson. And I think even like worse length, it's just he's not an athlete. I think George would tell you that, and
he would proudly tell you that.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat on defense in the league, and Jaylen needs to kind of find his footing in terms of just making good decisions and reading and reacting quickly. He got a steal in this one, which was not a nice little rip of Tobias Harris that knocked the ball out. And you're right, D'd up pretty well in a couple of possessions, but like it's just got to come on either end. And one thing I'll say on the offensive end, and this is really hard, and it's probably freaking unfair, so huge grain of salt. I do kind of want to see him play with the on-ball juice that he plays with when all the guys aren't out there. Like, this is a guy who kind of, if you're going to be a jack of all trades kind of player, be able to run a little secondary pick and roll and like actually attacking it to get into the teeth of the defense, not just to say you ran the set, is important. And like, I do think sometimes with role players, it can get in your head of like, I'm a role player. I've been practicing to be a role player because this is a championship contender and they're not going to want me running 30 pick and rolls a game. But like part of the reason we were interested in Jaylen going into this year is like, hey, he's shown that he can do that in a way that a guy like Isaac Okoro maybe never really did. And I think purely excising that from his game might be affecting his rhythm on offense a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. My goal is a little more modest. I would like to see him learn how to set screens. Because the screen setting's been really poor when he's done it, and with his frame,
and he's got the right body for it. You're great minds.
Like that is one of those small areas that I'd like to see him improve. But before we get out of here, I do want to give a shout out, and maybe this late in the podcast, it's going to fall into that generic praise category. But I think Jared Allen deserves a lot of credit. Like, he has now responded with 3 consecutive very strong games. I thought he was great defensively against Milwaukee. 20-7 tonight in just 25 minutes. I thought he was terrific. Another matchup against very physical guys in Duran and Beef Stew out there. And he had beef stew for dinner, man. Like that poster dunk was something special.
Yeah, I've really loved his activity in the passing lanes these past couple games.
Yeah.
And when he catches the ball with a little runway in transition, it's a powerful thing, because he can just out leap and out length a lot of these guys on some of these finishes. So the pick sixes have been a nice little addition to the Jarrett game. And generally, I actually love to see him get up 12 shots, even if he only made 7 of them. It's a weird one where it's like catch the ball in the pocket and get it up, Jarrett. Because more often than not, that's going to be a 9 out of 12 game or a 10 out of 12 game.
Yeah.
So don't limit yourself artificially ever, you know, especially with where this roster is and where right the second, where there's not a lot of usage eaters to go around. So like if you catch the ball, if you get a catch and a touch near the hoop, just get it up there, man. Like you're really, really good. And a lot of these are going to go in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he has been a real steadying force over this winning streak. He has been a major contributor to it. So really nice to see. That's one of the things with Jared is he does bounce back, right? Like when he has those one-off games that are very loud in one direction, he's capable of making an impact the other direction. And these are physical teams, right? Like Giannis and Miles Turner, what Detroit has in the front court. Nick Claxton, who is looking to make an example physically against him, as you pointed out on the last podcast.
Just bewildered.
All of those guys are attempted to test him, and I thought he stood up really well. So big thanks to everyone that tuned in live. We will be podcasting Wednesday. No Carter, so we won't be going live, but we will have a podcast in your feeds on Thursday morning. But thanks to everyone that tuned in live. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcasting and want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.